I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic Engineer Gold Mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Chris Vermeulen, his website, thegoldanoilguy.com. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim.
Oil, what is happening there? It has been going up slightly. The Canadian dollar, I think, had a nice ride because of it. I noted oil down today, the dollar down today for Canada.
Yeah, crude oil has been creeping up. It's been having a really significant move to the upside. It's had a nice reaction high from the recent lows that we saw back in June. And if you look at the chart of crude oil from more or less January of this year, it's made a series of lower highs and lower lows. And more or less all the moves have been very timely. They've all been following more or less some pretty key cycles. And crude oil, as of yesterday, more or less hit a key resistance zone along with the U.S. dollar, which hit a significant support zone. And we've been waiting. Well, we can touch on the dollar in a minute, but the dollar, I think, is going to play a huge role in crude oil price and even precious metals over the next couple of weeks. And I think it's going to catch a lot of people off guard. And today is kind of the first shot across the bow. Crude oil with, it's dropped almost 3% at one point this afternoon. It's recovering a little bit back here, but huge selling volume. And I think this is the start of a downward move for commodities in general.
What triggered it, or do we know?
Well, I think a good play, a good portion of it has to do with the fact that it's more or less hit a measured move to the upside using Fibonacci extensions in cycle analysis. It has moved to the upside according to what the previous move has done. So it's met its momentum kind of thrust target of how much power was behind the move. It's also on a time cycle. It's actually topping out. We're seeing cycles actually starting to roll over, and it's also near a previous pivot high. And each high has been lower and lower, and this is just lower than the last one. And usually price gets stuck just below the previous low. And that's what signifies a downtrend, is lower highs and lower lows, and that's exactly what crude oil is doing. So we've just hit one of those technical levels where finally it just has worked itself out. It's hit that level, and technical traders are now dumping oil and getting short, likely, anticipating a further drop over the next week or two.
Now, we're having all those problems in Venezuela, a major oil producer, yet I don't see price affected by it that much. Is that because there is so much oil, Venezuela is not part of the equation?
Yeah, I don't really follow that so much, and so I don't know how that really factors into it. Maybe that's part of, I don't see that kind of news really affect the market too much. There is a ton of oil out there, and the speed that vehicles are changing over, all these things. Crude oil is really going to be in an upward battle, I think, looking forward in the future, 10, 15 years. It's definitely going to struggle, and it's been being pretty dormant, putting in a potential major low, but commodities are a bottoming formation, but commodities are known to go dormant for years and years and years, and crude oil could be just that. It's trading in this giant range. It's up at it's a little overbought. Everything is pointing to a bit lower prices for crude oil, and it might really underperform for a long time. I remember 2015, 2016, a big crash, and everybody thinking it was going to rebound back up to 75, 85, and usually the market does what you don't expect. And here we are trading dormant sideways for another year, and it is building a potential launch pad for it to go much higher, but we've seen commodities trade sideways like this and drift around for years on end. So you never know what could happen, and crude oil, is stuck in this sideways range with right at this point technically it has a downward bias. We should anticipate lower prices for the next 2 to 3 weeks.
We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after the break.
Aben Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Aben's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at abenresources.com.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen. Chris, what's happening with gold right now?
Yeah, gold and silver have been they've been on a little bit of a tear here. They've had a really strong rally the last few weeks, and they're moving up to more or less reaction highs, very similar to crude oil. Actually, silver, gold, and oil have been moving very closely related, and I think a good chunk of it has to do with what the U.S. dollar is doing. And I think we're about to see a major turning point in the market that I think a lot of people is going to catch a lot of people off guard. There hasn't been a whole lot of talk about the U.S. dollar, but if you look at the U.S. dollar index, doesn't matter what time frame, the daily chart's pretty extreme. If you step back to a weekly chart, it is even clearer. But we've got major sell-off in the U.S. dollar index. We're finally reaching a measured move, a significant low from back in May of 2016. The U.S. dollar has gone into free fall mode, and usually what goes straight down pretty much comes straight back up with a knee-jerk reaction rally. So the U.S. dollar yesterday hit this target that I've been waiting for a couple months. If it ever got down to this level, it's going to be screaming a significant reversal point, and it hit that level yesterday. It's trading at that level again today, so we're imminently, right any time now we could see a very strong reversal in the U.S. dollar. And that is going to put a top in gold, silver, miners, crude oil. Commodities in general are going to start to struggle. And I think this could be a very strong rally in the U.S. dollar index. It may not go up to the highs we saw back in January, December, but, we could see a huge move within a 3-week period that could just, I think, catch a ton of people off guard, and we could see the precious metals lose all the sizzle that they've had. It'll be wiped out in a heartbeat, and they'll continue to flounder and kind of trade in this large basing formation that they've been building over the last year and change until things mature more and the equities market puts in a significant top, and crude or commodities eventually become the new safe haven. It's just not that time yet, in my opinion.
What's driving the U.S. dollar?
I'm not sure what's really driving the U.S. dollar. Obviously, we've had good earnings, which the large cap stocks, the international stocks, like a weaker dollar because it means it's cheaper for people around the world to buy use their services, buy their products. So it's been good for the stock market, this kind of decline, because it's boosted sales. But you got to keep in mind, as a Canadian myself and somebody who trades mostly U.S. stocks, when the U.S. dollar starts to rally, that's when I'm even more interested in the equities market, and I think it'll bring a lot of overseas money back into the U.S. stocks and rejuvenate it for a short while, for a few months. Because what happens is, even if I was to buy U.S. equities right now and it doesn't go anywhere, yet the U.S. dollar rally is 5%, that position holding in U.S. dollars has gone up 5%, even though the stock hasn't gone anywhere. So it makes investors very anxious or very excited to get into U.S. equities when the currency that they're holding the shares in are about to appreciate. So I think once we see that, I think we could see a leg higher in the stock market going into this summer over the next month or so, and money just pile into equities, and money's going to flow right out of the safe havens, so like gold and oil.
Is that the kind of thing you expected this year? Because a lot of people are worried we might have another August 25th Black Friday like we did 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Anything is possible. Obviously, we don't know what is going to take place, but everything from a technical standpoint at this point is still pointing to higher prices for equities and lower prices for commodities. And we're finally at that pivot point in the market where the key kind of indicator, the U.S. dollar index, is at a point that when it turns, it's going to be sharp and it's going to put pressure on commodities. So I think right now the best play, in my opinion, is all based around the U.S. dollar. It's either long the dollar or short gold, silver, or oil going forward. I think that right now is kind of the screaming play to be focusing on.
We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario. With grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold, a drill program will commence this spring to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork. For more information, visit our website, rmroyalty.com.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen. With the action that you're expecting, what does that do to the Canadian dollar, which has had a great charge for the last few months?
Yeah, the loonie's really it's had a big move up. It's obviously a rising crude oil price is definitely helping the Canadian dollar, but we've got a lot of money overseas moving into Canada. It's seen as a very safe haven. I think Trump has a role in that. I think people are a little weary of him in place in the States, and Canada seems to be a safe investment, and it's resource rich. So we've seen that really nice bump up. But again, if the crude oil rolls over here, which it makes sense because the Canadian dollar, if you look at the Canadian dollar from a technical standpoint, it's at a significant resistance level, and it's starting to sell off as of this week already. It's hitting its head, and it could very easily move down. So when you put all the things together, Canadian dollar at resistance, like a multi-year, we're talking about a 2-year pattern. It's back to a resistance zone that's been very significant in 2015 and 2016. The dollar is about to bottom, which if the dollar bottoms, the loonie should fall. Crude oil is starting to reverse as of today. If it falls, the Canadian dollar will fall. So a lot of things, the markets are interconnected, and it's just a matter of putting enough pieces together. The more you can put together, usually the better the setup the better the opportunity you have for it to play out in your favor. So I think this has been a nice pop in the loonie, but I think it's about to fizzle out a little bit and fall back from the 79 level it's at now down to the 75 level again.
Foreigners seem to like Canadian equities as well. I keep seeing record amounts of foreign money being put on the Canadian exchanges.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that has to do with just the currency in general. It sold off over the last since 2012. It's had a pretty big drop, and it's down at a significant support level from, you can go all the way back to more or less 2000, and even it's below the 2009 lows, but it's flirting right back at those lows again. So it's at a long-term support zone, meaning the Canadian dollar probably isn't likely to fall much lower, and by putting money or into the Canadian market, whether it's equities or buying real estate, you're buying not only some good assets, hopefully, depending on the stock you buy, but you're buying into something where your core currency is likely to go up from here as well. So we're seeing the same thing where money is rotating into Canada, into all kinds of different asset classes, because the loonie is a bargain. It's very cheap here, and it's got a lot of upside potential down the road. I
know we look at the high price of Canadian real estate, but perhaps it's not as expensive as we think if it's put in terms of U.S. dollars or other currencies.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's always two sides of the coin for how that plays out, for sure.
Your forecast for the equity markets in Canada over the next little while?
I think they're going to be a lot of it's going to have to really hinge on what the crude oil prices are doing. I think that plays a big role in things, but overall, I do feel as though we're going to continue to see. I think the Canadian market's going to struggle a little bit more simply because the U.S. dollar is about to rally. That's going to put pressure on commodities in general, and obviously the Canadian equities market is pretty resource rich with precious metals and oil. So as those underperform, we could see U.S. equities continue to move higher while the Canadian market kind of flounders and struggles. And, when eventually things are going to turn, usually we see commodities start to outperform during the later stages of a bull market. Obviously, we're well into a bull market, and we're kind of waiting for that later stage to show up. And eventually we'll see the Canadian equities market start to outperform the U.S. market. And that's when we know we're probably getting very mature to a significant major high in the stock markets, which means we're nearing a bear market. But we haven't seen that yet, and I think we're still months and months away from potentially seeing that. Trump kind of, pardon the pun, trumped the market. It was rolling over. All the signs were there that we were about to enter a full-blown bear market. We were just waiting on the large caps to roll over. Everything else had rolled over. And then Trump slides in and rejuvenated the entire market. So we got to wait for this Trump kind of bump to fizzle out, and that could still take several more months. But all he's doing is postponing it, and eventually a bear market will come. They always do. But it's just a matter of waiting and holding out until signs are clearly there before you really want to jump the gun and flip your direction of positions. So it's a long-term play, and you don't want to try picking a top right now. It's deadly game to be doing.
Someone was asked, how do you play the markets looking at the Trump White House? And they said it's so confusing, don't even factor that in.
Right, yeah. I don't follow any of that stuff, really. It's just a convoluted mess, and everybody's got their own opinions. And the stuff that he does and the White House does, I guess it's unpredictable, and you just can't factor any of that into the markets. Right.
So stick to the stuff you know and the factors that you know.
Exactly.
Chris, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, Jim.
My guest has been Chris Vermeulen. His website, thegoldandoilguy.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Any questions for the show or our guests can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.